Thank you, everybody, for joining us. It is 6:01. I'm going to call this special meeting of the Village Romeo Board of Trustees to order. Would you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can you call the roll, please, Catherine? Bartholomew?
Here.
Edwards? Fowler?
Yes.
Hart?
Here.
Parker?
Yes.
Poznansky? Here. President Malzahn? Here. 6 present. All right, we have a quorum. Good. At this time, we have the approval of the agenda. I'm going to ask if we can move the new business items, all 3 of those items, up under public comment so that we can get our guests out if that's possible. We'll take care of new business first.
So moved. Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion by Hart, we have support by Fowler.
Yes.
Any other changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Perfect. Public comment. Anybody at this time wanted to address the board? I think you're all on the agenda, so you should be okay. Okay.
Megan Poznansky, Benjamin Street, Romeo. It saddens me that our president has called a special meeting to speak about everything but the elephant in the room. I was contacted by many residents. I'll read specifically from a resident. The bigger concern here is that the village finances and information is unaccounted for, and that the clerk and president need to be held responsible for their neglect of the security of village information and their ability to conduct business in a professional, secure, and transparent manner. More than a marijuana ordinance, dead trees, or the pub wanting to hold an event, our village officials should be concerned about the ransomware. It's been 3 weeks. We have no information, no updates. And yet here we sit talking about everything but what we need to be talking about. That's my comment.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to our new business. Up first, we have the outdoor merchandising permit for the office pub. If you wanted to stand up and introduce yourself, Caleb, or Nikki, I'm not sure who, yeah, go to the podium, please. So they came before us this week. We, by the way, have a monster agenda on May 17th. So I thought in the essence of time, we would move as much as we could to tonight's meeting, and they were prepared to come tonight, so that's why that's part of our agenda for this evening. But Caleb and Nikki had some requests that they need paperwork done, as well as a special event permit. So I'll turn the floor over to you to explain what's going on.
Well, thanks for having us first and taking care of this right away. I don't know if you want to.
I think that probably word has traveled pretty quickly, but Caleb is going to be the new owner of the Office Pub and Cookery, and we need to come before you to ask for the outdoor patio area to be transferred over to his new business. I don't know how to say that.
His new ownership, right, yes. Yes.
So for our liquor license approval, we do need permission to have that outdoor seating area from the village. And we're very excited. I know it's a tough change for Nikki, but we're a long time, went to high school in Romeo, and excited to be part of the community.
Yes, well, we're grateful. And
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank
And
Does this need a motion?
exciting opportunity. It does, because there is a form that's attached to here that has to be submitted to the liquor license control, so that,
I'll make that motion.
you see what has to be done.
I'll make the motion to transfer the outdoor service license,
Okay.
or liquor license and seating.
Yes.
Is it from, do we need to state a name?
Well, the form needs to be filled out that you see that's attached to your packet, but we can certainly complete that.
Okay.
Who did the second?
Fowler.
And we also do have the application on file for the liquor license transfer. Again,
That's through the
it's,
state, correct?
yeah, right, it's through the
Yeah.
state, just acknowledging that we do have it and it's on file. So, any other discussion about outdoor merchandising? All right, we have a motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so done. That's transferred over.
Thank you
All right.
very much.
Hope that was easy, right? And then we have a new event that Nikki is partnering, I think, or helping, assisting with Jim Reels for their Jeep Night. They came before the DDA, asked for DDA help in sponsorship and offsetting the cost. I believe they're going to try and hang a banner on the south end of town. But again, with their special event permit, normally something that we approve. It's going to start taking effect on May 24th, so I thought if we're here tonight, we can just get this approved, and then they'll know that they can make their plans. So if you want to give your spiel on Jeep Night.
How you doing? Mike Victor, I'm representing Jim Reels right here down the street, just south of 30 Mile Road there. So in partnership with us and Office Pub and the village here, we're going to hold a Jeep Night, and basically what it is, just like-minded individuals who own Jeeps who get together. It's a meet and greet, customers, friends, family, and hang out, and anybody that, you know, especially that not familiar with the area, attract them to here, and hopefully, you know, for business-wise and everything else, you know, restaurants, banking, whatever. So that's, we're gonna hold it on June 8th, starting around 6 o'clock, and then at 7, we're gonna have Deacon Mike come in, and something that with us Jeep owners and what we do with the Jeeps, usually beginning of the season, and it was just this past weekend, we have a Jeep blessing, and Jeeps get blessed, and it's something that we've been doing for years. So on June 8th, Deacon Mike's going to come in on our Jeep night at 7 o'clock and bless the Jeeps for the beginning of the season, which is a real good thing. And then after that, it'll probably run till, I don't know, 9, 10 o'clock. Working on some shirts with Zach from FAMS across the street. Working on a logo, we got a pretty good start with that. We met yesterday, and then he's in the designing process of that, so it's pretty cool. And then we have July, August, September, October that we'll run it through, and it'll be one time, you know, first or the second Tuesday of the month, I believe that's how it's going to fall. So
I think with the exception of July, just because of the way 4th of July falls, I think
Sorry.
we would decide on the 3rd on that one. But every other month, it would be the second Tuesday.
Will it be a separate permit for each one, or can we just add the
Yeah,
dates?
it's not on here.
There's only one date on here, of
Oh.
June 8th.
I guess we should have put for the entire summer, huh?
So we can put all 4.
because we
Just
did
make the motion to include all 4 dates.
Okay.
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. That was
I'm
my
sorry.
question.
Catherine, did you know those dates? Because I did not write them down.
So July, do you have that? July,
So it was, let's just recap, yeah.
Yeah,
What
recap
do you
them.
have
Yeah,
those
so the
dates?
dates
Any other motion?
the dates that we have set up for is June 8th,
Yes.
July 13th, August 10th, September 14th, and October 12th.
all right, there's 5 of them.
Okay.
Yeah, there is.
So is your motion still good for all 5 days?
Yeah, I make a motion to approve the event.
Support.
All 5 dates.
We have a motion by Parker, we have support by Bartholomew. Any other discussion or questions? All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Great, thank you so much again, I appreciate you, taking time to bring a new event to town, right?
Thank you.
Good luck.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right,
Thank
good
you.
luck.
Thank you very much. Look
Yep.
forward to it.
Okay, so we've taken care of our new business. Let's move on to our unfinished business. First up, we have the marijuana ordinance, which is really the purpose that I call this meeting. It was brought to my attention that since we tabled it, we didn't rescind it. We probably should have thought about rescinding it, but since we tabled it, the current ordinance is still on the books and in effect. There is a limited amount of time of which locally the applicant can apply. And that time is expiring, in which then they would apply at state level for a local license here, which our ordinances, according to Mark, should still apply, but we don't want the state to sort of take control of what's happening here in Romeo. So it's very pressing that we take care of this before any applications are submitted under the state guidelines. And that's why you have it back before you tonight. So we have a couple of options, and I just want to explain what we have. Mark drafted today, which I laid in front of you, a copy of the rescission, which basically would rescind our current ordinance. It puts us back in an opt-out state. Am I stating that right, Mark? Right? It's not. We're technically not opting out, but we don't have a current ordinance that's in effect. So, for all intents and purposes, we're in an opt-out state.
Well, you had the village had opted out. I have to take a half a step backward. With medical marijuana, the local municipalities, in order to participate, you had to physically opt in. You were automatically in an opt-out position under the medical marijuana when that came into effect 2015, 16, whenever that was. The recreational marijuana did that differently. You were automatically in unless you opted out. And initially, the village opted out. I mentioned that, I think it's ordinance number 521. The village passed an ordinance opting out so that there would be no recreational marijuana, not the grow, the processing, the things that you considered and included in your existing ordinance. And so if you choose, if you rescind the ordinance as part of the rescission, I just reinforced that you're in the opt-out position. In other words, putting you back, the community back, the council back where you were before you passed the ordinance last June or July for the marijuana business licenses. So that was my thinking and my advice, my explanation to you when you're considering what you're going to do tonight.
Yes, so a couple of options then. We can do nothing. We can continue to table this. We can table it till the next meeting and see if anybody submits an application. We can adopt the approved, restated, and amended ordinance that we reviewed last month. We can rescind it altogether. If we're going to rescind it together, I would like that to be either a noted time frame. We're rescinding it for a period of, and let's put a date by it. Unless you're saying you do not want medical or recreational grow facilities in this village, in which case then we're just going to repeal it and we're not going to work on this anymore. Or I did provide you a copy at your place where I made some edits, and I'm suggesting that we edit the Mark's restated and amended ordinance to accommodate two of the three things that we talked about at our last meeting. If you look under the sheet, I included just that portion because what's in yellow is what I'm suggesting that we change. So I added.
Can I interrupt real quick? I mean, last minute, we just getting this stuff. We didn't even get this a day ahead of time. I know we gotta.
I just drafted that this morning. Yep. I just drafted that this morning.
Yeah, it seems like something that should be at least put off so we have time to review it.
And again, you can put it off. I'm giving you the options.
Yeah.
I'm giving you the options. It's pretty clear because we talked about what we wanted to say, which was who do we want to allow to make the assessment? Who is going to score these? Right? We talked about, no one had really an answer. I've included the words clerk's department staff, treasurer's department staff, with the assistance of legal counsel. After speaking with Mike Philbrook at Bruce Township at the Recycling E-Waste Day, they are considering hiring an outside firm or paying a stipend to their team that's going to review their ordinances. That money comes out of the application, $5,000 application fee. So it's not coming out of your budget.
To review the ordinance or review the application?
To review the applications.
Okay.
Yes, to review the applications. So I thought if we have to then hire a small staff to do this work or use existing staff in the office, that adding that wording gives the latitude to have it be more than just Catherine. I'm also asking that the time frame be extended. It did say 30 days, now it's 60 days. We don't know how many applications we're going to get. We do know that it will be a significant amount of paperwork. That will be a lengthy process. So there are 3 instances where that wording comes into effect. Clerk's department, treasurer's department staff. That allows us, again, to have additional people without them being named, but they're covered under our insurance policy, they're covered under our, our coverage that we have for.
When is the expiration date you mentioned?
I don't have an expiration.
Well,
What do you mean?
mentioned that it has to be decided by a certain date.
In the ordinances, it says once the application period closes, it would be completed within, the review would be done in 30 days.
But you mentioned that the state would take over and they can make application to the state. So we'd have to have it done before they make that application to the state.
That time period is now.
Is now?
Is now.
Is now today.
Yes.
Can't be on the 17th when we re-meet.
It very well, right. It's up to anybody else who wants to come in and hand off an application in the village office. It's under the state's application guidelines that we don't control. Right now, we do not have an open application period in the village office. We're not accepting or handing out any applications, but under the state, they can come in and drop 10 boxes in the village offices and say, my application is submitted.
I'm in agreement with Trustee Parker here. Just got this last night. We got this on the 17th. I wouldn't mind making a decision then, which is what, a week and a half from now?
It's 2 weeks from now, and again, you run the risk, if you do not rescind it, of the state guidelines taking over what the village guidelines say. And that's what I'm telling you. That's why this is important.
When was that date, though? When did that change? Because this was already in effect, and you guys pulled it and stopped taking applications. So could that have happened then?
We were not, right.
So that could have happened whenever. This has been...
I was not aware that was
When were you made aware?
yesterday.
So who receives that information in our office as far as the timelines? You said you weren't aware of it.
I was made aware of it yesterday, and I promptly called Mark, and we talked about what should we do. How do we best protect the village from being in a situation that we don't want to be in? And his advice was, well, we should probably call a special meeting and give everybody the options to say, either rescind it and take it off the table.
So if we rescind this ordinance
to rescind
as
this
written-
ordinance with what Mark has supplied here.
Say that again? I'm sorry, Mike.
I make a motion to rescind the ordinance per what Mark has provided.
So if we rescind it now, that protects us from what
Correct.
you're saying, and we can have time to review, get this where we want it, and then...
If you are going to
rescind it.
review it and get it where you want it, I would like a time frame attached to that.
But we don't
So
have
that
to. We can.
For the people who are
We can opt
interested,
back in whenever we feel like it, just like we did this
for
time,
the
correct?
people who are interested
My
in
motion
bringing
will not have a
marijuana to
date
the
on it.
village, they are calling repeatedly and asking the question, when is this? Is this on your agenda? Are you going to deal with this? And I don't have an answer. I'm asking you to be considerate of the village staff and say, we will revisit this in, whether it's 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, a year, I don't care what it is, but you need to give me a time and not just let it hang out there like a big matzo ball in the room. If you do not want to have marijuana ordinances in the village, then rescind it and say, we're no longer going to have marijuana ordinances in the village.
I don't think anyone's saying that. I think everyone just wants time to review this to make sure that it's
You reviewed
sound.
the ordinance, right? You told me to make 2 of 3 changes. The third change that you recommended was that it would be done in a public meeting.
Yeah.
Cannot be done.
Explain why, because every municipality, planner, legal I've talked to outside of this room has said that's the best thing to do.
Incorrect. And Mark can clarify that point for you, right?
Well, I think you could do it in a public meeting. I would advise against that because of the type of information you have in your existing ordinance. The financial disclosures, there may be medical or health issues that should not be disclosed or made public. I really recommend against a public review of the applications. Can you do it? Does it violate the law? On the face of it, no. But if you run into issues with the Health Insurance and Portability Act, if you run into HIPAA issues, people disclosing very personal financial information, perhaps social security numbers, driver's licenses, criminal histories, I just recommend doing it against doing it.
I can respect what you're saying. So with that, I guess reviewing the application in full is one thing. I think what we're more concerned about is the scoring process. Because I would even like to add the fact that whoever's reviewing or doing the scoring, let's say doing the scoring, is unaware of who even applied. Someone can assign a case number, file number to it, it's put in front of the scoring board, and they review it and score it, not knowing who they're scoring. So
All of the information that we're asking for cannot be redacted to that process. If you look at all the information that they have to submit, every partner,
I'm not
every
talking the whole
financial,
application, I'm
everything.
talking the scoring process and the
That's all
10,
part of the review.
the 9 categories.
That is all part of the review, and that's what that team would be doing, looking at it to make sure that all those financials are in place and that
Then
we
it should be
have copies.
rewritten then. I don't like it.
I'll second Megan's motion. So we can
Yeah.
table this.
Then it should be rewritten to be what?
I'll have to review it and get back to you, if that's the situation.
That's the situation for what? To have personal information revealed at a public meeting for anybody who wants to come into the village and do
No, I
business?
just said that I think it should be opposite of that, where there's a way that it is not disclosed and we can do a scoring based on not knowing who we're scoring. And then other things I've been learning is I don't think we should limit the amount of license either, because I think that's opening us up to more legal issues moving forward.
So you want to have more than the 2?
I didn't say more than 2, I just said, don't think we should set a limit.
Can I ask the opinion of our attorney on that question then?
You
Mr.
can, Mark?
Parker, what do you think of the trustee
Well,
Parker just said?
you can assign whatever number you want. Is it 2, is it 6, is it 8? As long as the statutes, there's compliance with the statutes, the applicants are approved at the state level as well as the local level, I don't think the number of the number of licenses opens you to litigation. It's the process. If there's a faulty process, you get to pick the number of licenses you want to allow. I don't know on the face of it, I don't see on the face of it that a limitation of the number of licenses would subject the village to liability. You can't, I don't believe, legally be compelled, as long as you're acting legally in the process, you can't be compelled to do more. So I don't,
We
that's,
get 5 applications, 3 of them scored high scores of 80. We got 3 people, all scored the same. Who do we give that second?
I think there's a mechanism in the ordinance in terms of ties. And so, again, if you want to revisit the process, you should do that. It's your choice. But I don't think a limitation on the number is in and of itself problematic.
So exactly what you said, the number that you select, we can revisit at any time and increase the number.
Well, you can always amend your ordinances, but you don't want to be in a position of amending your ordinances to accommodate a certain person or a certain group. That becomes problematic. And so, but yes, ordinances can always be amended as you're considering tonight. They can be rescinded or repealed. They can be amended. They can be passed anew. You can do that.
I have a second on Megan's motion.
Well, I'd like to be clarified before we call the vote of a time frame on which you want this ordinance repealed.
My motion does not include one.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Her motion does not include a time frame
Okay.
of which to
Okay,
repeal
so
it under.
we can't have a time frame on there. Okay.
You can set a time to revisit it. I would recommend against including a time frame in the repeal if it passes, because what I don't want to have happen inadvertently is if you say, all right, we're repealing the ordinance, it's effective 60 days, and you don't get anything done in 60 days, then the argument that I think you should want to avoid is Well, then, if you don't do anything in 60 days, is the prior ordinance revived? What happens to the prior ordinance? So I'm not encouraging or recommending that you do nothing. I am recommending that you not include the time to do something else or something additionally in the repealer if you pass the repealer. I worry about inadvertently reviving something that you've said you want to rescind or repeal.
Okay.
So what would the remedy be for them to tell the office? Because obviously, from what I understand from the board, I think this is something we want to move forward with. I think we're pretty close to having that, but it doesn't look like, it's going to happen tonight. Would it be a resolution that we're going to do, get something on the books in 60 days? I don't know how, as far as a promise, but to answer the question that the office, needs to have some kind of remedy for that. Is there a recommendation? Would a resolution be appropriate?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I am.
You can, or certainly you can do that, or the village staff or office staff can just be told that the ordinance has been repealed and there's nothing currently that allows us to accept or process applications. The flow or control of information is up to you, but certainly there's nothing inappropriate about a resolution. That would be fine.
Okay, so we have a motion to repeal it by Poznanski. We had support by Fowler.
Yes.
Right? Can you call the roll for me on that?
Poznanski?
Yes.
Fowler?
Yes.
Bartholomew?
No.
Parker?
Yes.
President Malzahn?
No?
Bob Hart? Sorry, Hart?
I'm trying to think how we go forward from this. We need to, I won't see how it goes. I'll vote no.
All right, 3-3, motion fails. Tie vote.
Okay.
So we need to do something. We want to adopt.
I'd like to make a motion that we move forward with the changes that we made so that we can keep moving forward.
Right. Just to reiterate, when Mark and I talked about this, we are still confident, as is he, that we have a perfectly, sound ordinance that's on the books, right? It has a few flaws in it. It has the transposition of the numbers, but we, both of us alike spent a significant amount of time in speaking with other municipalities and are confident that our process is sound. Could it be improved? Yes. Can you predict every eventuality? No. That's sort of the situation that we have right now. With Justin joining the board just now in November, it sort of changes his concerns are being heard. So if you have some other suggestions that you would like to speak about, I don't think that rating them in a public meeting is appropriate. I think we have allowed Megan's that they must score a minimum of 1 point in every category, or it would disqualify an applicant.
What about the overall that got left out also?
What it says right now on that second page is that a failure to score a minimum of 1 point in any category may disqualify an applicant. So they can't just skip over it, which is what Megan was concerned, that they would just not do anything. So they have to score at least 1 or they'll disqualify.
So we left off a couple things at least that we talked about at the last meeting.
The only thing that we
The
didn't
open,
address.
and then it's right here, whoever made the notes, it says 70 minimum. I mean, that was whoever made these notes.
Well, we went between 50 and then we went between 70, and we were trying to do the math of what the
No, I
average
think
score
50
would
was for the
be.
minimum, a
Matt
50%
said
minimum.
70.
And Matt made the suggestion to do 70 points.
Matt made the 70.
And I thought that was pretty much unanimous agreeance on a minimum.
And I think that just adding, if they skip over 1, if they fail to score at least 1 point in any category, disqualify them.
I understand.
So you don't have to worry about a
That's what you
minimum.
feel, Christine, but it was very clear at the last meeting that we were pretty much in agreement on that. So you're basically saying what you think individually overrides what the board thought at the last meeting.
What I'm saying to you is that I spent my time today drafting this, and if you don't like it, you have your input right now. If you want to change it, you can change it.
I'll second
But I
Nate's
believe
motion.
that 1 point, scoring 1 point addresses both a minimum score and that they aren't able to skip over any one question.
So that's 9 points out of 100. 9 points out of 100, we're going to give a license.
No.
Yeah, that's all it says, 1 point in every
If they
category.
fail to score at least 1 point.
Exactly, so that means someone
in
can
any
have a
one
minimum of
category.
9 points out of 100 and get the license. That's what we've just said. We went from someone getting 1 point to get a license to 9 out of 100. So we're going to take 9%, not a failing grade anywhere, or not a passing grade anywhere. That's what we're saying. That's not what we decided pretty much as a board last meeting.
Okay,
I think
then
we were
make
pretty
a
much in
suggestion.
agreement. We did, at the last meeting, 70.
Okay.
We don't need suggestions. We have a motion and a second. Let's,
Motion for Rio.
I'm sorry, what was the motion?
The motion by
can't-
Bartholomew, second by Poznanski, to move forward with the changes presented. Is that correct?
Okay.
Well, we're still having discussion on
Keeps us in
what
the loop.
changes that Nathan
but
may
none of the
want to
changes have anything to do with the
changes.
motion, so let's get
Nate
the
should-
motion out of the
Nate
way.
made a
and then
motion to
keep
approve
talking
it
about
as
Well,
changes.
I don't believe he has
And he
support
can-
yet for his motion, or we can
Megan
do it.
supported it.
Okay.
Let's just make,
Okay.
Okay, we're still having discussion.
Do you want to have discussion, or do you want me to call the roll on that?
I'd like, yeah, call the roll.
Okay, call the roll,
Please.
please.
Bartholomew,
Yes?
Poznanski,
No.
Parker,
no.
Hart,
Yes.
President Malzahn,
Yes.
Fowler,
No.
motion fails.
Okay, we can make a motion to put your 70% in there.
Yeah, and I mean, so we added the clerk's department, treasurer's department, and/or treasurer's department,
Approved by council.
right? And it's still nowhere in there, it says, it still could just be one person, right? One person doing the scoring, with the assistance of legal, right? How is that non-biased? One person doing scoring, in closed session, or behind closed doors.
Well,
no
the original
transparency.
ordinance was to have the clerk and the treasurer's office both do it as non-electeds, and our current treasurer doesn't want to take on that task. You can't mandate that she takes on that task, so.
Well, then they
unless
are
you're-
elected, right?
Yeah,
You just said
but
non-electeds.
They're elected, but they're non-voting members at this
Non-voting.
board.
Okay, that's-
They are not actually having a vote in who gets a license. Therefore, it takes that objectivity out of there.
Didn't we discuss
So-
a proxy for the treasurer?
Alternates, I think, is what was
I think that's what
decided.
we discussed last week.
It didn't say that, which is why I'm saying now if we have the treasurer's staff, so,
Because the future clerk, future treasurer may not be the same treasurer, so
exactly.
they might want to be involved.
Right. This gives the latitude for multiple people, 2 people, 3 people. Again, if you want to say that it's a minimum of 3 people, that we're hiring 3 people to do it, put 3 people in there.
I'm going to hire.
Well, this is a significant amount of work. This is a labor-intensive task. We don't know how many we're going to get, and getting, a $5,000 application fee out of that, that gives us the latitude to pay someone to perform those duties.
I've seen a copy of a completed application. It was no less than, I believe, 6 3-inch binders full of paperwork to review. That was one application that they were interested in.
If they're going to do that much work and they're going to pay that much money, shouldn't we get this right? We should not have a little bit of mistakes. This should be correct. So
Pretty
let's
solid.
take the time and do it correct.
Did you have something to add?
Yeah, as the treasurer and just under the current situation in the office, we are under tremendous amount of stress just with payments that are coming in that you don't have the capability of receiving into the system at this current time. So right now we have 3,600 utility bills, which today was our last day to process those. And so therefore, all of those bills are pending to be applied and received into the system. And so if you add any more additional responsibilities to the treasurer's office, which I did have a part-time person start on Monday, which she's learning, so therefore my time is to allocate her towards training her for water billing, and then tax is going to be coming, I'm going to be working on tax. And so therefore, there is going to be no time. My understanding of it is since January of 2020, all of the receipts that the treasurer department received in will need to be re-input. And so all of those transactions from January 2020 to current, every day we get behind. And that needs to be a sense of urgency and made aware of, and how we're going to deal with that situation before you add any more additional responsibilities to the treasurer.
So currently you have 3,600 that hasn't been processed? Is that what you just said?
Correct, because the system is not available to receive at this current time because the general ledger is not set up and the bank.
I don't believe that the current situation that she's speaking of has any bearing on this ordinance. We have a 30-day application window. Once we publish this, there's a time frame for that. Then we have the application period, and then we have 60 days of which that review process should be done.
But the
So I
treasurer's
understand.
department and the treasurer are busy. The clerk is busy. She works in a different office multiple days of the week.
No, she doesn't.
When are they going to
So
have?
for starters, she does
It is
not.
When are they going to have time to do this?
You're an elected official.
Right, which is why I'm suggesting to you that if we needed to hire staff out of the application fee to do that work, we would. We would have the ability,
But why are
with
we
adding
passing
that
an
language
ordinance
in
where we
here,
need to
to do
hire more
that work.
staff?
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Why are we passing an ordinance and there's a need to hire more staff? Let's just wait. Wait until we figure everything out. Wait until everybody has time, and then bring it back.
Because the people who want to apply, who want to do this, the revenue stream that it would generate for the village to help our budget, every day that we don't address this, it's a missed opportunity.
We can't even get our computers back.
It is a missed opportunity.
That's a missed opportunity. She just got
So-
3,600 checks she has to process.
Right.
So
Checks have been scanned.
Jamie, did you have a question?
Or
comment?
Comment?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, guys. How you doing? Jamie Lucero. I presented to you guys about a year ago, and I'd just like to hit on some points that were made at last trustee meeting and tonight's meeting, and then a possible workaround for you guys, what other communities do for this if you have alternates. If I can hit on that first, some villages, some townships take their committee chairs and make them the selecting committees. So the chair of the DDA, the chair of the ZBA, so on and so forth.
I made that suggestion.
To go back to last week, Mr. Parker, both you and Mr. Clark were correct, but you were not correct for the reasons that you think you are. Mr. Clark was 100% correct. You cannot make a law in the village that is stricter than what is provided by the state. The state has prescribed and said that these applications are to remain closed door. Therefore, when you're saying that they need transparency, it's just not there. The reason why the debacle happened in Warren, and I'm very well versed in Warren. My attorney is actually the attorney for the plaintiffs in Warren. So I actually have quite a bit of knowledge on this. The reason why it went down in Warren the way it did was not because the applications weren't made public. It was because, to a degree, you were right, that it was not an open meeting. But that is only because their trustees were the deciding committee. And as you know, once a quorum is made, you're subject to Open Meetings Act. They did not do that. In fact, when it came to a head and it went to court and everything was being released, the judge stopped the releasal of all the applications because you have personal financial information there. You have corporate financial information there. And if you guys try to put that in this ordinance is dead. This industry is dead. I came to this village with this option as a viable option for revenue because it didn't seem like there was any other option for revenue right now, for new revenue for this community. This can literally transform this community and save it. But if you keep tabling things, if you keep stopping it, you guys will be passed in the dust. Other communities will be favored and no one will want to come here. And as a resident, I don't want to see that. I'm a businessman, but I'm a resident first of this community. And I want to see this forward, not only because if I get a license, cool. If not, I'll just go somewhere else, but I live here and I want to make sure my village stays. So this tabling and stopping, here's the thing. You guys opened a small window and then stopped it over some verbiage. Right now, there is rumblings in the industry of coming into Romeo and forcing your hand. So either you guys fix this.
We're at 3 minutes. Are you going to extend his time?
I am going to extend his time. Yeah,
Just
thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for keeping the clock. If you guys want, there will be a lot of people from normal to other industry individuals that will just force a ballot initiative. And unless you guys know what happened in Utica, I'm going to tell you right now, you do not want what happened in Utica. Utica was the Wild West, and they had to rush to get their ordinance, and their ordinance is not perfect, but they had to rush, or they would have to argue, and they would have to sue the state and undo over 50 years worth of ballot initiatives and argue that ballot initiatives are unconstitutional. So that's what you're faced with. Either just amend the parts and try to get this going, or the industry's going to come in. And the industry's going to come in and you're not going to have the ability to amend the things that they do because it will be by the people then. So that's really what you guys are looking at. And I know my time's probably getting low, so I will step back, but thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. And that's right, that's the message that I'm trying to confirm. So if you're going to rescind it, if we still need to rescind it, if you are not comfortable tonight hashing out and making some amendments to this that we can approve and move forward and open up the application period, then I'm imploring you to either decide right now that you are not going to revisit this and this business will not come to town, or put a time frame on it.
Mark, can you confirm, because I believe at the last meeting you did say we could have it at an open meeting. Jamie is telling us that we can't do it at an open meeting, is that correct?
I'm saying do not do it at an open meeting, and if I said...
but we can't?
Well, you can do it, but it would be over my advice. I do not believe I said at the last meeting you can review the applications in an open meeting. If I did, I apologize because I misspoke. You do not want to have not only the content of the personal information, but the volume of the personal information, at least in my opinion, released to the public. And you also have, again, you may have the Health Insurance Portability Act, HIPAA, about disclosure of personal information for those who want to apply for medical marijuana licenses, if you allow that. And so I do not recommend that. Your decision as a council to award the licenses should be, and I think has to be, made at a public meeting, but I do not think the review of the applications with all the information, the personal information that would be contained is advisable, and I would recommend against it.
With that, in regards to HIPAA violations, what information wouldn't be FOIAble then? If this was submitted as
It's
an
not,
application?
it's not subject to FOIA. It's in your ordinance that it's not, and it's in the state statute as well. So that somebody can submit a FOIA request, and it would be subject to denial based upon the state of the applicable law and your ordinance.
So the only FOIA information they can get is just the name of the company, basically, and their address.
Well, I'm not prepared to say what the extent of the FOIA response could be or should be. I can just tell you that there are exemptions with respect to the process. And that's one of the reasons why other communities, and it's in your ordinance as well, have included the attorney. I'm not a fan of being involved in the process just on the face of it, but part of the reason for including the attorney in many other communities, again, anecdotal, I've not conducted a scientific survey, but many of the other communities that have adopted similar ordinances have included the attorney, with the thought being that it would then be appropriate to protect the information under the attorney-client privilege.
So, I would agree, I'll make a motion to move forward with the restated and amended ordinance with the changes that I've noted in yellow, changing the last yellow sentence to say a failure to score a minimum of 70 points cumulative total may disqualify an applicant.
May or will?
Shall.
Same thing with the line before that.
Well, we have discretion
Right.
then.
Right. If you say may,
Yeah, we have a
then you
choice.
have the latitude to say, okay, well, why didn't they score 70? And let's look at these other exceptions. If we say it shall,
But then that's still
then-
putting it back in front of us where we are not going to have anything to do with this, right? When you say who's going to review it, we're not going to review it because we're not going to be awarding the license. We're not going to vote on.
We are awarding the
But our
licenses.
ordinance, and if they scored only 69, this board could say, we could reject it.
If they score 69 and it's in there as 70, they don't get a license regardless
The
of what
reason
we
it says
say. 'Cause
may-
that's but it shouldn't say
It
that.
gives the power to the board.
It shouldn't be there. That's what we're trying to avoid by having other people do the scoring.
We have two applicants, and they're both 69 and 68. Where hands are tied, we can't approve it.
Exactly.
Okay, I don't necessarily.
So then why
think
even have
that's
someone
good.
else score it, Bob? Why don't we just score it here right at the table? Because we're trying to avoid that, where it's put in our hands, the power's in our hands to make that decision, right?
Based on everything, and we have an option to do that.
So then again, it's back on our table for us to vote on who gets a license, so this means nothing. Again, the person could have 1 point come in front of this board, and it's the only person that applied, and this board could vote to put one person in.
Yep, or they could say, no, you didn't score the minimum of 70 and we're not awarding a license. It gives you an option, right?
It gives you an option, but then it defeats the whole purpose of doing the scoring at all.
No, it doesn't, because it sets your criteria. It sets your criteria where you want to go, but it doesn't pigeonhole you into saying, well, okay, well, you didn't score,
Well, then-
you didn't score 70.
Does it make sense if I feel like I'm running solo here?
I'm not for the weed ordinance anyway, so I was.
It makes no sense that we're going to say we're going to have a minimum of 70, but yeah, we're going to vote if you got less than 70, and we may give it to you. It makes no sense.
And then that means we could vote for 69,
We could
but
vote
not
for
for
two.
68, or we could vote for 68 and not for 69, and then where does that get us?
Yeah, if you're going to set a minimum, set a minimum.
And what are you basing your minimum? You guys just pulled 70 out of there.
Right.
I think
I don't
it
know.
should be an
Throw out a number,
option.
Bob.
You don't know when it's there. I would like to be able to have an option of accepting it at 69 or whatever. Your 70 is a number we've just pulled from a dead reckoning.
Yeah, and someone just put 20 points in on line 5 just to put 20 points in. Who decided that one was going to be worth 20 and this one was going to be worth 10? Who decided that? Just pulled a number to make 100, right?
No, they
Right.
weighted it in other communities, and that's what we based our ordinance off of.
Oh, and
So
other
there was some-
communities have minimums?
No, they do not.
None do.
They do not that I'm aware of, but I haven't reviewed every municipality's ordinance, so I do not know that.
So,
But again-
I go back to what Trustee Poznanski said, that we should table this until we've made it solid.
What are your other concerns that we're not addressing this evening? that we would need to delay this further. What are your other concerns?
The minimum.
Okay, well, I've just
the word may.
agreed to say if you don't score 70, you may be disqualified.
Exactly, may.
Okay, well, but it's in there, so what are your other concerns?
That's what I just said. May. I don't like the word may.
Okay,
I don't like the restriction on how many. Do we restrict how many banks are going to come into town? How many gas stations? How many retail stores? Do we say, oh, we're only going to have 2 print shops or 2 apparel stores? Do we say that?
Well, we can change that any time, Mr.
Yeah,
Clark.
and I
We can, but yeah, like Mark said, if we're going to make the change based on accepting a third application because it's already in, that creates another problem.
And we're
So it needs to be solid now before we start taking applications.
We're protecting our industrial park. I mean, from having an inflood of that. I think 2 is a reasonable start in putting that in there. I think
Is that, I'm going to play devil's advocate, is that just a number you pulled up because you thought it was good?
No, I think this is...
Did you measure the square footage or the outlay of the industrial district and how many available buildings and do all the math? Or is that just a number that you feels good?
It wasn't, Bob.
Like this, I know, but you did the same thing with the 70 minimum, we just pulled that out of the air.
no,
So now
we
we're just
did
saying
think
2.
about that. We also upped the square footage of 1,000 between properties for just that reason, so that you're not having one after another in one block, creating a problem. That's why we chose to limit it.
If it's a problem, why are we doing it? If it's creating a problem,
We don't know if it's going to create a problem, but we're trying to anticipate. And again, you cannot anticipate every eventuality. All we can do is make our best educated guess and put this forward.
okay, so let's go back
You
to
cannot
pulling
say
that number
that-
out of the air.
that even if we
We
worked
as a
on this
board
for
sat here at the
another
last
30
meeting and
days.
discussed a minimum. I thought we were pretty much all in agreement on having a minimum. It would be enforced.
Right, and now we have a little bit of latitude that's in there. And if we want to change the ordinance because we want to put 2 more in there, we can always go and do that.
I'd rather
But
start
we don't
with 2
necessarily
than
wanna
10.
have 12 come in, and because they will pay double for rent, the tenants love it, and all of a sudden, that's all that's in our industrial district. There was a lot of thought that has gone into this. Is
So
it
it sounds
perfect?
like we're
No.
going into it with the mindset of, we're expecting this to be a problem, let's limit it. It's gonna smell. But let's give it?
Maybe
No,
be
I-
conservative. How about if we just walk into this conservatively and slow walk it in? I think that's more of maybe the intent.
Say, this is new, this is a new industry for Romeo, this is a revenue-generating source for us. We do not need to commit ourselves to 100 of them, or 3 of them, or 4 of them.
Yeah, I think
When
if
we
the
talked
ordinance
about
is
it
written-
prior to your election to office, 2 is what this board agreed on. And I get it, that change is flipped, and you may have some concerns on that, but 2
Actually, I thought
wasn't
the
an
board
arbitrary
just
number,
asked for
excuse me.
medical. We never asked
No.
for recreational.
We did-
Yeah, you could go back and look in the videos. I'm pretty
I would
sure that's
agree.
what Bob said. But then when the ordinance was brought to us, it had a lot more in it.
I think what we need to remember is we're trying to make decisions on something that's brand new. This is all cutting edge.
Very true.
We've never experienced this before, but I don't like
Right, Nate, that's very true.
the putting ourselves in a position of having what happened, what Jamie was just saying. This has been worked on. We've taken from other communities, the scoring. I think we're doing the best we can, so.
I can respect that, but
But I don't want
I don't want to push something in almost knowing we're going to get sued.
No, we're
Without a doubt in my mind.
Our attorneys, I think, does a very good job at making sure
I
that
respect that. It
we're not
doesn't
putting
mean we're not gonna get
ourselves,
sued.
putting ourselves in any
Right.
position for that. I mean,
Then let's not do it at all. Let's just rescind it and not
then
do it at all.
then we
if that's
lose all
what
that
you're
revenue.
concerned about.
I didn't say that.
Well,
Don't put words in my mouth, because I didn't say
you
that.
just said that we're going to get sued. So why would
I
you
feel
do
with the way
something
this is
that's
written,
going to get us
the
sued?
information and the reaching out to other people, what I've picked up, just like we're listening to Jamie, like he has all the answers. The people that I've talked to said this is not sound.
But you
This is
also
not.
talked to people in Warren who said that we were going to get sued if we don't do this in public, which you
I
can't
talked to
do.
one person in Warren, I
I'm
talked to people
suggesting that
in
maybe the
Berkeley,
people that you talked to
Lapeer,
have some flawed
Oakland County,
information.
a lot of
He
other
just-
places.
And he
Not
just explained
Warren.
why they got sued, because they had trustees doing the decision-making.
That's
So
part of
we
it,
can,
yes.
so
We're not doing that.
we're not going to do that. We're trying to do the best we can to
But we
stay.
just said May, right? May. So then that comes back to us to make that decision on who may get the license. So we are going to make that decision.
The ultimate decision is on us, yes.
But we won't be
That's what
privy-
we're trying to avoid. Like you just said,
We won't be privy to all the information, though.
Which makes it even
Jamie's
worse.
hand is getting sore over there.
I'm sorry,
Can I make a comment?
yes.
Sorry to be back again. And I'll watch my time this time. To your point, Mr. Parker, the May, I think you're getting lost in the woods with that. The reason why municipalities have the May, and I don't claim to have all the answers, I've talked to a lot of people that had them, and I just retained it. So I'm sorry if that comes off wrong, but I'm just trying to help you guys out and consult you guys. The word may comes into play when you don't meet that threshold, because as these municipalities have found, the ones that are getting sued for the scoring are when you meet the threshold, you say 70 points, right? Someone comes in, they meet the 70 points, and the board says, no, you're not getting the license. These are set up not for the board to approve just basically say, yeah, you meet the threshold, you can get a license. A lot of times when they don't get the license, it's because of something other. It's not the merits of the application. Sometimes it's personal feelings against the applicant. That's where the lawsuits come in. And the may comes into play when no one hits that threshold. Then the body, so say you have 10 people that apply. All of them hit between 65 and 69. When you say may, you're still opening up because it's either
I
you
understand
just say
what you're
nobody or
saying,
it's
and Bob explained
done.
also too, but if we're going to set a minimum, right? Why are we going to say we're going to accept less than that? If you go to the state to take an examination or to get a license, for me, for electrical, if that minimum is 70 and I don't score a 70, I don't get that license. Pass, fail. It's not, oh, well, let's take it to a board where maybe we'll give it to you, even though you got a 60.
Because
that makes no
we're not
sense.
talking about a pass-fail, because pass-fail would be a 50, right? Pass-fail would be a 50. We're talking about a much higher threshold.
Not if we set our pass at 70.
And also, so I'm going to reclaim a little bit of my time, sorry. Also, as far as leaving complete areas open and everybody has to at least score something in a spot, which I think was brought up. I know it was brought up last meeting. I believe I heard it tonight. These applications and scoring models are set up that way for a reason. There's some municipalities that ask and they weight a question of, are you a resident of our community? Because they want to know the money's kind of going back to their community, right? Invariably, you're going to get applicants that are a 0 on that, but they may score higher somewhere else. So if you put a standard score on everything saying you need to at least score something in these areas, I think you're going to throw away a lot of applications or just not get a lot of people that are going to apply anyway. And going back to the making everything open, and I forgot to touch on this, with the HIPAA issue, yeah, and with the personal financials and company financials, you're a business owner. If you make it open, these documents are now FOIAble, right? As a business owner, do you want your personal information? Would you be okay if I or anybody here could pull information on you?
Information?
Yeah, your business financials, your personal financials, are you okay with that? Because that is what you are arguing for by making the entire application process open.
And I think we've just clarified, I think you're beating a dead horse, that I think Mark agreed with you that that can't happen. So I think we're just continuing to beat it.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that that was something that was taken into consideration because it didn't sound like
we just clarified.
it was accepted. His
So-
answer was accepted, so.
All
right, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jamie. In the interest of time, Mark, I know lawyers love the word we may, or may and shall, right?
Yep.
Do you have a thought process if we're arguing over the word may or shall at this point?
Well, shall is mandatory, you must. May is discretionary. And one of the perspectives on this is to try to limit the opportunity for abuse of the process, or even, I guess probably more accurately, allegations of abuse of the process. So the less discretion that you provide or allow, the less likely you are to be challenged. That doesn't mean you can't say may, but if you say may, then you're injecting, which again, you can do, a discretionary component to it, and that potentially could be problematic. Is it problematic on its face? No, it is not. But if somebody says, well, you treated me differently because of I have curly hair, or I have no hair, or whatever it might be, that can be problematic, and discretion allows for that. And the implicit in discretion is that the discretion will be reasonably exercised, and that people who are similarly situated will be treated in a similar manner. And you can allow for the discretionary component. I think the less discretion allowed, the less likely it is you're going to be challenged. The more formulaic it is, as long as the formula is evenly applied, I think you're in a better position. Yeah. You can use the discretionary language. Shall is mandatory, may is discretionary.
Yeah, Mark, I think in what we were saying, if we had a scenario, we have 10 applicants and they scored between 65 and 69, not to limit the board that we couldn't move forward with a candidate because nobody hit 70, but treating everybody the same.
And I understand that, but maybe, and again, you're the ones who have to decide, you're the ones who vote, maybe if nobody meets your threshold, maybe nobody should get a license. I don't know.
And maybe that's the case, and maybe that's the case.
But if you allow for somebody who doesn't meet the threshold to get a license, then you have to be able to reasonably and rationally explain why somebody did who didn't qualify, and somebody who didn't qualify didn't get a license. Again, you can do that, but it allows for the opportunity for challenge and potential problems.
Right, but somebody has 69 points, they were the highest score, but they didn't hit the 70, is the scenario I'm seeing.
So then, I'd say 69 points is the minimum. And then you're going to say, well, if they got 68, then maybe we can decide to put the 68 in if the minimum's 69.
Right. I guess if you put it in the way that this is, applicants are there, automatically anybody under 70, if other people are scoring 70 or above, they're out.
Yeah.
But if you had a scenario where you don't have anybody coming in at 70, and under that it still gives the board, and you don't know, I mean, you may very well be able to say that, but it'd be nice that the board would be able to say you don't get a license, or you do get a license, because 70 wasn't a good number.
Then let's have a lotto. Let's just get all the applicants, put them in a thing, and pick 2 names out.
All right.
That's what we're saying.
In the interest of time, then I'll revise that, and I'll say, I'll use the word shall, if you want to say shall, and I'm going to say 65 points cumulative.
Will or will not?
They shall meet a 65-point cumulative total.
No.
How about will or will not instead of may? Then
I'm sorry?
How about will or will not instead of may? Would that be sufficient? Because now you're on both sides of the fence. You can pick.
Well, again, it's subjective, right? Will or will not is the same thing as may, and I'm saying that I'll use the word shall if that's your sticking point, and say 65.
But the will or will not, I mean, you can say, yeah, we will do it or we will not do it, but you still have the option of saying no on the will not.
That's what makes
But that's the same thing. Yeah, we don't want to. I don't know where you. I don't want to make any choice on who gets a license out of this. That's what we're trying to avoid, and by leaving it the way it is, that's just what we're doing.
So I'm gonna just restate my motion is to accept the changes to the staff And to change the last line, a failure to score a minimum of 65 points cumulative total shall disqualify an applicant.
And just for housekeeping, did Nathan have an open, did he rescind it? Did he pull back his motion?
We voted.
We voted on
Yeah.
his.
Oh, we did, okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Support.
And then change this may on the minimum to shall also. And I don't think we should change the minimum,
Right, that's
because
what I
that's the
said.
minimum we all agreed, pretty much agreed
Failure
on
to
at the last
score a
meeting.
minimum of 65 points cumulative total shall disqualify an applicant. That's my motion. You have support? Any other discussion?
Yeah, I don't know why we're changing it now to 65, when we've already decided last month,
Matt
or
decided.
last meeting. and
We
it's
didn't
not even
vote on
here.
it last month. We talked about it.
At 70.
We talked about it. I'm saying if you want to make that a mandatory, I would agree to use your word shall. That's called a compromise. And I'm saying 65. That's 5 points. It's still more than a fail of 50, which we talked about 50 and 55. We threw around a bunch of numbers.
That was
And yes,
the percentages
that's
on the
what we
minimum
talked
in
about.
each category that we talked about.
And I'm saying cumulative,
Yeah.
overall.
Yeah.
So, any other discussion? Roll call, please.
President Malzahn?
Yes?
Bartholomew?
Yes?
Fowler?
No.
Hart?
Yes.
Parker?
No.
Poznanski?
No.
Tie vote, motion fails.
Okay. So, where do you want to go from here?
I'll make a motion that it is with shall, but we'll keep it at 70 points.
Did we address, that's where we're going, Bob?
Support?
Where we're going. You guys
Okay.
recorded that one, right?
We have a motion by Bob for 70 points, with support by Bartholomew. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I was going to say, do we clarify a minimum number of who would be doing the scoring?
No, we did not. It will be the clerk or the treasurer or their staff, however many they feel like they need to get this work done.
I don't know if I'm comfortable with that, without setting some type of minimum of at least, saying at least 2 people, right? Because I don't think this scoring process with one person.
I'll amend my motion to be at least 2 parties. 2 people to do the scoring.
I'll still support that.
Okay. Any other discussion? Call a roll, please.
Hart?
Yes.
Bartholomew?
Yes?
Fowler?
No.
President Malzahn?
Yes?
Poznanski?
No.
And Parker?
No.
I just like
3-3,
you guys to know,
motion
I'm-
fails.
I'm not in favor of the weed thing anyway, so it's nothing personal, but the smell's gonna be there. And I'm not for the smell thing, it all goes the same. I've been a big supporter of this, and I'm still not.
Well, I don't think we can say the smell will be there because they have methods and ways to filter that out.
If you review the ordinance, you will find that there are provisions in there that there will be no smell, and there are repercussions if there are. That's why we wrote the ordinance.
And they all have the same verbiage, and you can smell it.
No.
so.
Well, I disagree. All right, how do we want to move forward?
I say we rescind it and get a subcommittee.
To do it without me. No,
I didn't hear that, Megan. I'm sorry.
She's suggesting that we rescind it and get a subcommittee.
So you're going on the original? Is that what you got?
That's what she said. Mhm.
I'll follow your motion.
The subcommittee made up of, and under a time frame.
I won't put a time frame on it.
Again, not fair to
But
any of the applicants.
I would be on the subcommittee. If anybody else would like to be on it.
I don't know that a subcommittee would be any more effective. Again, no one is telling me what their objections are. We've addressed and amended our motions to accommodate what your concerns are, time and time again. So what are your concerns?
You hesitated, you almost had it.
I don't know if I'd say time and time again. Earlier, we talked about this last month.
No, time and time again. This is more than once have we hashed this out, right? We've been working on this for well over a year. So we're either going to rescind it and not have marijuana ordinance in the village, period, or we're going to move this forward and get on with it, because it's not fair to anybody. The staff, myself, Mr. Clark, the applicants, the building owners, the license holders that are already thinking that we're going to do this in Romeo, and it's not fair to them for us to keep holding the carrot and dangling in front of their face. So.
I'll second Megan's motion.
Could you restate that?
Once again, to rescind the ordinance per Mr. Clark's.
Is
Doesn't
that
have an
form of a
ordinance number on
motion?
it. I make a motion.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you meant when you said per Mr. Clark's.
Per the paper.
Per what he submitted, what was at our table when we walked in the door?
You made the motion, Zach.
Fowler
Second. Discussion on this, right? So we got a motion and a second. So right now we're just looking at rescinding what we currently have, not anything that was presented today, the current ordinance.
Correct.
We're going to rescind it and then move forward on a better revision.
Yeah, one trustee is the subcommittee, she's looking for a partnership.
Again, I don't know
I'd
how a
offer it to
subcommittee
Mr.
can be any
Lucero,
more
but we
effective
can't.
than the whole board that's doing
We
this
have
work. We're asking, what are your
residents
Are we
concerns?
that far off?
Right. What is your sticking point that you don't want to move this forward? If we have 2 people now, we have a minimum score of 70. What now is your concern?
What, again, I'd like to see, review it as written.
You have reviewed it 5 times, Justin. You're just delaying it, and you're delaying it unfairly.
This is the first time I saw this, Christine. Don't say it 5 times.
Justin, it's three sentences. It's 3 sentences. I'm pretty sure that you can read that and understand that in 5 minutes. So we are.
Thank you for
We talked
understanding
about it at
my brain. I
last
appreciate
month's
that.
meeting. That's what you
I do.
wanted to
I really
see
do
in there.
appreciate that.
That's what we're doing, and we're talking about
let's
it right now.
Make the revisions, give it to us in an ample amount of time to review it with the revisions that we've just discussed.
I'm not going to do that again to delay it further so that this application
I won't approve an
process-
ordinance unless I see it written. I won't do it.
You
Any
have
ordinance.
it written.
We just talked about revisions. We just talked about revisions that we were going to put in, and then I'm not going to approve it without seeing it written. So if we need to make a motion to table, we've already got a motion, so I'm not going to make it, to table it till we see the proper revisions as written. All I got last night, less than 24 hours before this meeting, was some pigeon scratch on a page, which wasn't even what we got today. How do I know what's going to end up in this? If I'm going to approve it, I want to see it written, a final copy, with a whole copy.
Well, the motion would.
The motion was to
the
approve it with
documents.
it.
Right, and then the motion.
And I'm not going to approve it until I see it written.
Is that how it's going to be for all the ordinances? I mean, this is
Yeah,
a typical way
definitely,
we do it.
definitely. If you're just going to approve something just on a whim, then I question
No,
that.
we change wording all the time when we're discussing it, and we pass stuff, but.
Yeah, well, I don't agree with that. Unless I see a full ordinance with the revisions made, written, so I can review how it's written, where it falls, how it looks, then no, I'm not going to approve it.
So if we rewrite this with these corrections, you will approve this at our next meeting.
I'm not saying I'm going to approve it. I'm going to say I'm going to review it. And if I like the way it looks, then yes.
So that
Isn't that the point of voting on an ordinance at all?
Because the 70% went from 65, which is already.
Because then again, you would be delaying it.
Yeah, so, but here we
another
go, Matt, we
indefinite-
approved it with revisions at the last meeting, and then you came back with something that was different than what you even noted. Then we just approved something that you changed.
We didn't vote last month.
We didn't vote on it, exactly.
We didn't.
We
but
did not vote on it.
I respect
We
that.
said we were going to bring it back. I brought it back.
Yeah, you brought it back with how you wanted it
Right.
to be brought
And
back.
that's why we're discussing about
So
how do we want to
all I'm
change
saying,
it.
and I don't know if we need to discuss it further, until I review a complete ordinance, I will not approve it. Any ordinance. So if we need to rescind this for now, like Megan has motioned, to protect us until we get a full ordinance in place that we can review, then I would agree that we should rescind it now to protect us from the issue that you tried to force us to vote today on, moving forward. Got a motion and a second? I don't have anything else.
Was your motion still for a subcommittee, or is your motion just to
My
rescind?
motion is just to rescind. A subcommittee can be separate. We decide on that.
So we have a motion back on the table to rescind the
Second by
current
Paula.
ordinance.
We can put a time frame on the subcommittee if you'd like. But Mr. Clark said not to put a time frame on.
In the repealer, I would not.
In the
My
repeal.
concern is not that you allow yourselves to not take action. That's not my concern. My concern is if you repeal it and include in there it's repealed for the next 60 days, then when 60 days go by, if you haven't done anything, then the argument is the old ordinance is revived. And so immediately tonight, if you rescind it, you have no ordinance. If you do nothing, if it fails again, which is fine, you're going to vote however the votes fall. If you do nothing, you have a viable ordinance on the books for the acceptance and processing of applications. There are some flaws in the ordinance, which I mentioned last at the regular meeting in April. Those flaws have not been resolved. They still exist. The ordinance is on the books. And so if you are not going to amend the ordinance, or you're not going to pass a restated and amended ordinance, which is your choice, I'm not making a value judgment about it. You should do what you think is best. If you don't rescind, you have, and don't amend, you have a viable ordinance, whether you like it or not. The things about which you've expressed concern, which are legitimate, are going to remain because you have an ordinance that you adopted and it is on the books and it is enforceable.
And so I'm not going to vote myself to rescind an ordinance without a time frame in place. Those that the people who are out there who want to apply know exactly when this board is going to deal with this. Putting it in subcommittee to get lost and hang out there to dry is no longer acceptable to me. So I agree, and I think that we should rescind this until we can vote and have one in place. I think that we have a viable option here tonight. If Justin doesn't want to vote on that, that is your vote, but
All right.
leaving it open-ended is...
With the discussion I have here, I think we're close enough that we're going to take this up the way that it's restated, which we do, and we'll have this ordinance to pass at the next meeting. If not,
So it seems like
I'll be done with this.
So it just seems like a better motion would be to table it until the next meeting, but we're in the middle of a motion.
I'm sorry,
so-
but Mark said to protect us, because we have an ordinance that's not sound, that you guys already adopted last year. To protect us, we have to rescind that if we're not going to approve something else today. That's what he's saying.
Because
he's not saying, no, we're not going to ever bring it back.
You can vote to table it. My point is there are issues with your ordinance, not that it's not enforceable, it is. Not that it's illegitimate, it isn't. The ordinance is on the books, it's in place. What I think I would encourage you, I don't think this, I am going to encourage you to consider before you vote is if you don't rescind it, which you don't have to, is it acceptable to you as a board to have the license process used and the applications accepted, reviewed, and decisions made based on your existing ordinance? Because that's where you're going to be left. And that's not a bad thing. Again, I'm not making a value judgment about that. I'm just letting you know, if you do nothing, you still have something. Whether you wanted something or not, whether you like what you have, if you do nothing, you still have something. And you have that ordinance, and it's on the books.
And where it stands now, if it's my understanding that if we're not taking applications, we're just sitting on them, then that would allow them to go directly to the state because we have an ordinance that allows it, and we're not acting on it so the state can do it. That's kind of that's why we would need to rescind this so that they won't bypass the village.
I don't know about going directly to the state. I can tell you in the state process, the information that's required is nearly identical to the information you have in your existing ordinance, you have in the proposed amended and restated ordinance. The type of information, the personal information, the financial, the business plans, those things are in the state application process. I do not know, I've not dived deeply into this in terms of how the state decides based on the information provided. Do they have a numerical scoring system? I've not looked at that, so I don't know the answer to that.
But an applicant could proceed if we're just sitting on it.
Well, the greater likelihood is that if you accept applications and do nothing, I don't know that an applicant is going to run off to the state and say, hey, state of Michigan, the LARA, the division that's handling these, Romeo's not doing anything, so we want you to just give us the award us the license anyway. I don't know that that would happen. More likely is an applicant is gonna sue the village to have a judge or seek to have a judge order the village to follow its ordinance. You've got an ordinance, you've got an application process, the applications have been submitted and nothing's going on. Judge, you need to tell that community to act on and adhere to its ordinance. That's more likely what would happen.
And that ordinance doesn't have a minimum score. It has the clerk doing the duties.
Who made you aware of this loophole?
Several people made me aware of this loophole.
Several people just yesterday?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I did a little research.
Why, all of a sudden?
I don't know why. I don't know why.
We don't have other things to be focusing on?
I have plenty of things to be focusing on.
We've got a motion, we've got a second on the table to rescind this, to protect us from a current ordinance that we all know has flaws. So regardless of what we do moving forward with the ordinance, to protect the village, my understanding is we should rescind it at a minimum right now, and then move forward with the ordinance corrections or whatever is decided after that.
That was one of the options, right? And I'm suggesting that
I disagree.
I would not support that because, again, it leaves it open-ended. To put this in subcommittee and to be delayed without a time frame.
I don't think anyone's talking about subcommittees, time frame delays. We're just going to rescind this to protect the village from an ordinance that we currently have that has flaws. I think that's what we're doing.
Hopefully we don't rescind it tonight.
So you want to keep an ordinance that has flaws?
I don't think that we should rescind it.
I think he wanted to vote to change the ordinance to what we were discussing because that was his motion several times. But I'm not speaking for him, but that was the several motions that found were some
I thought we were
changes.
pretty close. I mean, we've compromised a couple times, but if that's not the case, then we have no choice but to.
All right, so we had a motion by Poznanski. I'm sorry, who supported that? Zach supported that? We're going to call the roll on that?
Poznanski?
Yes.
Fowler?
Yes.
Bartholomew?
No.
President Malzahn?
No?
Hart?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
4-2, motion carries.
Okay. So we don't,
Hopefully we'll have those changes and we'll have the ordinance.
unless somebody tells me
Oh,
to
okay.
direct me to do
I wanna
something
make a
different, I'm
motion.
done.
Okay. I want to make a motion that we draft the copy of the ordinance with the change that is at 70% points minimum. And I guess it would be, that they have a 70 point, the 1 point that's in there, and what is the other, that we have a minimum of 2 people that do the scoring. Add those 2 changes to this ordinance to present at our next meeting.
Support?
Any other discussion?
So the motion is basically to get us a revised ordinance to review for next
Those
month?
changes.
Next month's
This month.
Oh, at this month's meeting?
Yes.
17th, 2 weeks.
Yes. So you'll have a written copy.
Roll call, please.
Hart?
Yes.
Bartholomew?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Ballard?
Yes.
Poznanski?
Yes.
President Malzahn?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. I'm just now noting the time. Next up, you have the budget review. Is Tim available by phone or?
He's not, he's in another meeting. He had another meeting scheduled tonight.
I haven't even reviewed any of this.
All right, so you have 2 copies of the budget that were in your packet. You have the landscape one and the portrait one, which is probably the easiest way. You'll note the one that's portrait has some blue line items. Those were the project lists from our goals and objectives meeting that we went over and discussed, and I was directed to include in the budget. You'll note that the general fund, if we include the budgets, those projects that were within the general fund, we would have to use prior year fund balance of $143,729.45 to have a balanced budget. We can do that. You have a copy that is in front of you of the available funds to spend that Tim did provide tonight. I'm looking for that.
I'm sorry, you said Tim's in another meeting?
Yes. He was available between the hours of 6 and 7.
All right, so we have a general fund balance of $1.2, almost $1.3 million.
If he was available to review this between 6 and 7, why did we move other things up in the agenda and not make this a priority?
I don't think we knew his schedule, the exact schedule.
We were just told. I'm not mad at you, but I mean, we were just told.
Make a
between
motion to
6 and
close the
7.
meeting.
Second.
We have 2 other agenda items.
I haven't reviewed this stuff. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, unless we're going to get explanation on all this, then
Then there's no point.
there's no point.
We'll
talk about it at our meeting.
We were
Perhaps-
planning on having someone here between 6 and 7 or a phone call, and I wasn't even aware that. We just got this last night. We knew he was available between 6 and 7 to review with us. We moved other things ahead of it.
Yeah, we canceled our meeting.
I mean, pages, right? It's almost like, what are we trying to push through that we're not going to see?
Again,
Yeah, I don't.
your accusation of pushing something through is inappropriate. It's highly offensive and inappropriate. If you
Then why
have
was it
some
a last-minute
concerns,
scheduled meeting to review a budget? Then when we had it scheduled
You
for
wanted
a
the
week
meeting
ago,
before,
over
we
a
didn't
week
have
ago.
access to the documents. We found access to the documents. We had a necessity to call the meeting for the marijuana ordinance, therefore it's on the agenda. If you don't want to talk about the budget, you don't have to talk about the budget. But the questions that you have aren't directed to the accountant to begin with. Those questions are directed to Catherine, who is responsible for getting you a budget. If we cannot answer them, we can get those questions answered. So if you want to dismiss the fact that she is in the meeting and it's statutorily her duty to provide you a budget, then that's your option.
No, I just, yeah.
Right.
I'm done.
So,
Yeah, no.
Another one. Did you make an attempt to get another bid from the tree service people? Catherine?
Well, we're on the budget, so are we?
There's a motion on the floor.
Yes.
What?
There's a motion on the floor and a second.
All right, the motion was again. I second it.
Correct. We're going to call the roll on that
This is, the motion is
to end the meeting.
To adjourn.
To end the meeting?
Okay, Poznanski,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Hart,
No.
Bartholomew,
No.
President Malzahn,
No?
Parker.
Yes.
All right, as I stated, you have two proposals for the budget. Are you excusing yourself from the meeting?
Yes, I'm excusing myself from the meeting.
Make a note that Zach Fowler and Megan Poznansky are leaving the meeting at 7:30.
$7:31, 29, whatever.
All right, trustee Parker is leaving the meeting. Meeting has not been adjourned. All right. All right.
I've never.
Right. Never quite encountered anything like this unprofessionalism. That's indeed. Clearly, we know where we stand. Sorry, public, the meeting is now closed at 7:30. Do like a quorum.